If love puts you in danger, would you risk it all to protect those you cherish? The stage was cloaked in shadows, a single spotlight bleeding pale white light onto the worn wooden floorboards beneath Alina's feet. She stood still for a heartbeat, the low murmur of whispered conversations dissolving into silence as the crowd waited not just for the song, but for the woman who bore the weight of whispers, judgments, and the ghosts of a past she longed to escape. Alina's deep blue eyes scanned the sea of faces, sharp and striking beneath the sweep of her dark hair. Her vintage dress clung lightly to her frame, a delicate blend of softness and steel, like a fragile armor she wore for protection. The scent of sweat and stale alcohol mixed with the heavy, smoke-tinged air. The underground jazz club wrapped her in its moody embrace, thick with anticipation and the scent of lost dreams. She raised her breath, the distant scrape of a chair and the clink of a glass the only sounds before the notes emerged, a haunting, ethereal lullaby, soft and trembling, weaving through the room like a thread of longing. But before her voice could dance free, the club manager's sharp voice sliced through the silence. "That's enough," he snapped, stepping into the light. His eyes were cold, calculating. "We appreciate your effort, but we can't have someone associated like you here. You know the word on you. Connections can ruin a place. You've got to go." The crowd shifted, uneasy murmurs rising as the weight of the words settled over Alina like a sudden winter chill. She swallowed hard, lips pressed tight, the music dying in her throat as all eyes turned toward her, shock, sympathy, judgment reflected fleetingly. Her heart hammered an uneven rhythm against her ribs, each beat a dull throb of humiliation. The red rose pinned crookedly on her dress, once a symbol of passion and hope, now felt like a mark, a beacon of danger and rejection. Alina's gaze dropped to the broken piano beside the stage. Its cracked keys whispered stories of promises unkept and melodies silenced by doubt. The echo of the rejected notes filled her mind with bitter resonance. She stepped back slowly, each movement cautious in the thick haze of despair, as the club's bouncer appeared at her side, a firm hand tapping her shoulder, a silent command. Around her, the sounds of confusion and disapproval blurred, the club narrowing to a small, suffocating space of personal collapse. Her fingers clenched into fists, the sting of tears burning behind her eyes, but she blinked fiercely away the shame. In the silence after the shattering rejection, the faintest pulse of her own voice echoed unyielding in the darkness, a midnight lullaby still singing softly beneath the noise. And with that fragile, haunting melody lingering in the shadows, Alina disappeared into the cold night, a solitary figure swallowed by the city's unforgiving labyrinth. The bruising silence that followed the sharp rebuke swallowed Alina whole, the applause from her competitors now nothing more than a mocking echo fading into the grim shadows that enveloped the underground jazz club. Her breath came shallow, the weight of the rejection pressing down like the cold steel of the broken piano at the side of the stage, its keys forever silent, a relic of dreams fractured by past mistakes. Under the dim haze of cigarette smoke and low amber lights, Alina stepped away from the stage's raw spotlight into the periphery, where the walls seemed to close in, suffocating but familiar. Around her, murmurs threaded with cast-off judgment and whispered exclusion swirled like a storm she was powerless to stem. The sheer sense of being an outsider, of the haunting accusation tied to her name and the dangerous crowd she was linked to, clutched at her heart in relentless waves. She pressed her palms against the cool brick behind her, grounding herself as deep shadows played against the tired face reflected sharply in a darkened window. The city outside moved on oblivious, lights flickering like distant stars drowned beneath an ocean of smoke and secrets. The night was alive with sounds, the distant siren, the shuffle of feet, fragmented conversations, but Alina's world was still, held captive inside the trembling reach of her dreams and fears. Her eyes traced the outlines of the broken piano, the splintered wood and cracked keys whispering their silent symphony of what could have been. A red rose, faded and slightly crushed, lay forgotten on the floor beside it, once vibrant, a symbol of forbidden love now dulled like her hope. Alina's fingers twitched, aching to reach out, to reclaim the song strangled in her throat. A low murmur reached her ears, a glimpse of an argument, strained and sharp, voices steeped in frustration. Alina's gaze snapped to the source, a group of men in the shadows, faces partially obscured but eyes sharp with suspicion and threat. Her name, her presence, a trigger with ramifications that ricocheted through the underworld's fragile alliances. The dread that Vincent's reach might soon extend to her tightened in the pit of Alina's stomach. She swallowed convulsively, the sweet mingling scent of aged bourbon and dust heavy in the air. Was this the price of chasing her dreams? To be marked as danger itself. The sting of humiliation was bitter, yet beneath it, a flicker of something stubborn ignited a whispered defiance carried in the haunting strains of the midnight lullaby she'd once dared sing. Alina's throat tightened, a silent vow forming amidst the ruin. Her voice, though momentarily broken, carried a promise that the lullaby was not yet silenced. As she turned from the shadows toward the flickering neon glow outside, the night's chill bit at her skin but failed to freeze the stubborn ember growing within. The distant hum of the city filled the void with possibility, as if calling her to rise above the darkness. The camera lingeringly captured her profile, bold yet fragile, shadows falling softly upon the contours of her face, illuminated simultaneously by the piercing glow of the streetlights outside. In that moment, Alina's eyes held a mixture of pain and determination, a silent statement echoing through the city's veins: she was not finished. The scene faded to black, the faintest echo of a lullaby threading through the silence, the promise of a voice yet to be fully heard. The city's neon haze bathed the narrow alley in a surreal blend of blue and crimson, the damp concrete reflecting the fractured light like broken glass. Alina stood against the cold brick wall, the remnants of the night's chaos swirling in her mind: rejection, humiliation, and the relentless weight of past connections that she could neither flee nor deny. Her deep blue eyes, usually pools of vibrant emotion, now shimmered with quiet tears, catching the flicker of a red rose pressed loosely against her palm. The whispers of the club, the sharp breaths, the scuffed footsteps faded into the nocturnal symphony of distant sirens and the electric hum of the city that never truly slept. In the dark, the broken piano silhouette seemed to haunt her memory, each fractured key a note of a dream tarnished but not yet silenced. She pressed the rose gently to her chest, the petals a fragile reminder of hope intertwined with pain, the forbidden love that danced just beyond reach, wild and tempestuous. A gust of wind brushed the edges of an envelope slipped into her pocket earlier, its presence unnoticed until now. With trembling fingers, Alina pulled it free beneath the ragged glow of a flickering street lamp. The handwriting inside was delicate, almost ethereal, a luminous thread woven through the dark tapestry of her night. The note read only a few words, yet they hummed with urgency: "Your voice carries more than you know. Don't let the shadows claim what is yours." Her breath caught, the words echoing deep within her, a faint heartbeat pulsing against the silence. A mysterious warmth spread through the chill, the midnight lullaby humming softly in the back of her mind, a melody clinging with tenacity to the edges of the night. Alina folded the note carefully, her fingers still trembling, and pressed it close to the rose. For a moment, the city's cold indifference softened the dangerous glare of vinyl signs, the clatter of distant footsteps all fading into a hushed reverence for a promise unspoken yet deeply felt. Her gaze lifted toward the sky, where clouds scudded fast over the moon's silver face, shadows racing with the wind. She felt the shift in awakening stirring beneath layers of fear and doubt. The crimson rose, vibrant yet delicate, seemed to pulse with a life of its own within the darkness, a beacon that would not be extinguished. Slowly, a flicker of resolve kindled beneath her bruised heart. Alina's lips curved, fragile at first, then with growing strength a whisper of defiance threaded with hope. The broken piano was no longer a symbol of loss alone, but of music waiting to be reclaimed, of dreams whispered between the shadows still yearning to soar. With her shoulders squared against the chill, Alina stepped from the alley into the luminous glare of the city. The night embraced her promise of the lullaby and the red rose lighting her path forward into the unknown. The camera lingered on her silhouette framed against the shifting lights of New York, a figure both vulnerable and unyielding, poised at the precipice of transformation. New York's relentless pulse throbbed beneath the inky velvet of night as Elena stepped off the cab onto the slick streets glistening with recent rain. The city lights shimmered like a constellation drawn in pavement and glass, a glittering labyrinth that promised endless possibility yet whispered of danger lurking behind every corner. Her hand clutched the faded note pressed deep inside her coat pocket, the message of encouragement that stirred a fragile ember within her bruised spirit. The air was thick with the scent of wet asphalt, exhaust, and the faint aroma of distant sizzling street food. Elena's deep blue eyes scanned the neon signs flickering erratically above underground clubs and dive barsta familiar yet unpredictable veins of the city's nightscape where forgotten dreams tangled with fresh ambitions. She pulled her vintage-inspired dress closer against the cold, the fabric whispering against her skin like an old friend, comforting yet reminding her of paths yet uncharted. Each step carried the weight of lingering doubt, but also the stirrings of resolvedony victories rising out of the ruins left by past rejection. The door to a smoky jazz club creaked open as she arrived, and the warm, low hum of music spilled into the street, a sultry saxophone weaving through steady bass lines and gentle percussion. Inside, the air was thick with a mesh of sweat and cigarette smoke, shadows melding with the golden glow of dim Edison bulbs strung overhead. Elena hesitated only briefly before letting herself be swallowed by the close warmth of the crowd. Eyes flicked toward her, measuring, curious, some skeptical. She sensed the invisible chasm her reputation had carved, a divide nurtured by feared affiliations and whispered rumors. Yet, she refused to retreat, her breath steady despite tension knotted deep in her chest. At the small stage, the broken piano bore its scars brightly beneath the spotlights, the chipped keys and faded wood echoing silent stories of lost hopes and silenced voices. She remembered that broken piano from her childhood, a symbol of melodies abandoned and second chances denied. Taking a deep breath, Elena approached the microphone with a tentative strength. The first notes of the midnight lullaby wove softly into the smoky air, fragile yet defiant. Her voice trembled at first, but within the cavernous room, it found a growing strength, a call, a whisper carried on a shifting tide of courage. Midway through, a tall figure entered the door, a flicker of shadow amidst the haze. Marco. His presence was like a dark pulse beneath the music, enigmatic and powerful. Elena caught his glance, eyes intense, searching, yet something unspoken passed between tame recognition, a challenge, a hope. The song ended, breath held company in the suspended silence before the sparse applause began, small, hesitant, but sincere. Elena's chest lifted, the weight of chains loosening, step by step. Yet, lurking beneath the hopeful notes, a chill awareness crept in. The shadows in the room deepened, whispers unnamed rose with the music. Elena's heart clenched with the question that hung heavy in the charged air. How much of her past must she confront to claim the future she dared dream? The camera lingered on her eyes, bright with the fragile spark of courage before closing in on the unopened letter resting in her coat pocket, the seal unbroken but glimmering with promise. And as the first rain of the night tapped softly on the windows, the screen faded to black, leaving the question to echo in the silence. What price will love demand in the city where secrets never sleep? The smoky haze inside the underground club clung fiercely to Elena's vintage dress, the narrow room pulsing with low jazz chords that vibrated beneath the floorboards. The spotlight's glow met her deep blue eyes as she sang, each note weaving fragile hope into the damp air, but beneath the melody lurked a storm of unease. Marco watched from the shadows, his presence an enigmatic force that both comforted and threatened. The murmur of the crowd masked the tension ebbing through the room as Elena sensed shadows stretching beyond the music, the dangerous edges of Marco's world beginning to unfurl. After her set, as applause lingered faint, Marco approached with a smile that didn't reach his guarded eyes. He handed her a small, unmarked package, its weight heavier than its size suggested. "Deliver this," he said softly, the command wrapped in a delicate vulnerability. Keep it safe. Alina's hands trembled slightly, the package dark and unassuming, yet charged with an unknown burden. What is it? He shook his head, voice low. More than you know. The air thickened with unspoken threats as she pocketed the package, understanding that this delivery could bind her life irrevocably to Marco's perilous world. Days blurred into a swirl of neon city nights and whispered secrets as Elena navigated the labyrinth of her double life. The city streets, slick with rain, reflected the fractured moonlight fractures that mirrored her own fragile resolve. Late one evening, as shadows pooled beneath flickering street lamps, a cryptic note slid through the crack beneath her apartment door. The ink was smudged, the message chilling, "They're watching. Trust no one." Fear gripped her, yet beneath it, a fierce, burgeoning courage sparked. She was no longer a passive player in her life's sinister melody. Alina's relationship with Marco deepened amid the tangled web of danger, yet the line between ally and threat blurred disturbingly. She found herself questioning not only his motives but the very safety of her heart. On a rain-soaked rooftop, the city skyline twinkling faint beneath low clouds, Marco's mask cracked briefly. "I want to protect you," he confessed, voice heavy with contradiction. "But this world won't let us be innocent." Alina's reply was a whisper against the rain's steady drum. "Then we fight, even if the night tries to swallow us whole." Yet, with every act of bravery, the shadows crept closer. One fateful night, as Elena took the package to an anonymous contact, a violent confrontation erupted, a cascade of danger clashing against flickering streetlights and the sharp crack of gunfire. She fled through dark alleys, heart pounding, the package's burden now a literal weight against her chest. The thrill of survival mingled with a haunting question. How far was she willing to go for love and freedom? The camera closed in on her rain-speckled face, streaked with determination and lingering fear. Her sapphire eyes glinted with the resilience of the midnight lullaby, a song not just of hope, but of rallying strength amid darkness. As dawn broke, painting the skyline with bruised pinks and purples, Elena paused atop a fire escape, watching a city that promised salvation and shadow alike. The package still clutched in her hands, she whispered to the morning breeze, "I'm not finished yet." The scene froze in the fragile balance of light and dark, courage and uncertainty, setting the stage for the trials yet to unfold. The smoke-laden air of the underground jazz club hung heavy, wrapping around Elena like a cloying shroud as she sat alone amid the peeling velvet drapes and tarnished brass fixtures. Her fingers absently traced the neck of the red rose pinned to her dress, the forbidden symbol she now wore not only as an adornment but a reminder of the tangled web she had stepped into. Deep blue eyes flickered with wary resolve beneath the heavy fall of her dark hair. Marco emerged from the shadows, his presence both a balm and a danger, moving with the fluid grace of a predator cloaked in charm. The light caught the glint of a solitary gold chain around his neck, a subtle token of power in a world where allegiances were forged in silence and blood. He sat opposite her, the distance between them charged with a tension that pulsed under the low hum of the saxophone. His voice, a gravelly whisper, broached the secret that had long hovered like a specter between them. "Elena," he began, his eyes locking onto hers, "there's no hiding it anymore. The ties that bind me are darker than you know. I am not who you think I am." The words settled heavily, chords of truth striking the broken piano in her mind, each note sharp, fractured, and undeniable. The revelation unfolded like a fracture spreading through delicate crystal. Elena's breath caught, the rose in her hand seeming to pulse, thorn shadows lengthening across her palm. The forbidden love, once a whispered dream beneath a moonlit lullaby, now danced dangerously in the light of revealed truths. Her voice trembled but carried the weight of dawning insight. "Why tell me now?" Marco's jaw clenched, the vulnerability cracking beneath his steely facade. "Because the shadows that chase me now threaten to consume us both. I need you to understand the stakes. If we are to survive, we must face this world together, fully and unflinchingly." Their hands nearly met on the scarred tabletop, the fragile promise of touch heavy with unspoken fears and desires. In that charged silence, the broken piano's ghost whispered of lost dreams and the cost of forbidden love. Suddenly, the club's smoky veil was pierced by the low thrum of distant gunfire, a stark reminder of the peril entwined with their connection. Alina's eyes widened, heart pounding as the harsh reality crashed over the fragile hope. Vincent's name echoed, a dark specter looming in the shadows of their fragile sanctuary, a rival whose merciless grip threatened to unravel everything Alina had dared to dream. She rose slowly, determination weaving through the fear as the midnight lullaby stirred from within, a haunting melody that was no longer merely a song but a call to arms, a beacon of courage in the veiled chaos. The camera lingered on her face, carved with newfound resolve and trembling vulnerability, as the night pulsed with danger and desire, love and loss writ large against the city's indifferent skyline. In that suspended moment between the music's lingering notes and the first echo of impending violence, Alina realized the path ahead was no longer shadowed by doubt but illuminated by the fierce, unpredictable light of passion and peril. As the screen faded to black, the haunting strain of the lullaby played softly beneath the silencia, promise of love unbroken amidst the gathering storm. The night had turned cold, the city's heartbeat muffled beneath a choking fog that rolled in from the East River, swallowing the neon signs and leaving streets slick with the weight of an unspoken dread. Alina stood on the fire escape, the chill seeping through the thin fabric of her vintage dress, wrapping around her like the invisible chains tightening inside her chest. Her deep blue eyes, once bright with dreams, now flickered with the sharp sting of betrayal and disillusionment. Below, the broken piano sat in the corner of the dimly lit jazz club, its shattered keys a cruel reflection of Alina's fractured soul. The faint notes of a forgotten melody haunted the shadows, whispers of lost passion and forsaken hope. The red rose pinned to her dress, once a symbol of forbidden love and vibrant desire, now wilted against the cold air, petals folding inward like the secrets she was forced to hide. Her breath came in shallow gasps, mingling with the fog as it thickened around the alleyway. Every ripple of distant city life, the hurried footsteps on wet pavement, the distant honk of a taxi felt distant and unreal, swallowed by the heavy silence that pressed in on her. The scent of rain hung in the air, a promise of cleansing washed away by the weight of shadows that clung to her like a second skin. Alina's hands clutched the torn edges of a note she'd found tucked beneath the dog's collar, a fragile thread connecting her fractured past with the uncertain present. The words blurred as tears pricked her lashes, a silent surrender to the storm raging beneath her calm exterior. The secret she held was no longer a shield but a shackle, binding her to a world where love was edged with violence and trust torn asunder by the cruelest betrayals. Her thoughts spiraled as the damp wind whispered through the narrow streets, carrying echoes of promises made and broken, of lives entwined and torn apart in the deadly dance of power and desire. The city's cold glow offered no comfort. It was a spectral witness to the unraveling of her dreams, a stage set for darkness to claim the light she once dared to chase. A soft rustling broke the stillness. A stray dog, faithful and steady, searched the shadows at her feet, its eyes shining with a loyalty that defied the chaos surrounding them. Its presence, a tether to the fragile hope that refused to die, was the only lifeline in the tangled web that threatened to consume her. Alina's voice was barely a whisper, forged from the depths of pain and fierce defiance. Is this what remains when the song fades? The fog closed tighter, swallowing her silhouette as the city held its breath, the broken piano's mournful echo dissolving into the night. The unraveled threads of her life stretched thin, fraying rapidly beneath the weight of betrayal and loss. And in that suffocating silence, Alina stood at the edge of descent, the darkness both a shroud and a challenging abyss from which she must find the strength to rise or be consumed forever. The city slept beneath a blanket of unforgiving night, its streets cloaked in shadows that clung like fears to Alina's trembling frame. She found herself standing at the edge of a silent rooftop, the cold air biting through her vintage dress as she looked down at the sprawling labyrinth of concrete and glass below. Every flickering street lamp, every muted horn in the distance, felt like a solitary echo reverberating through the hollows of her heart. Her breath mingled with the chill, each exhale a fleeting vapor dissolving into the oppressive darkness, a visual mirror to the fragility unraveling within. The distant hum of the city was muffled, turning the world into a cavernous space where silence screamed with the weight of everything she'd lost. Elena clutched the red rose she had once worn proudly, a symbol of love and rebellion, now wilted and crushed beneath the harsh grip of reality. The petals, once vibrant, had begun to fade and curl inward, mirroring the desolation blooming within her chest. Nearby stood the broken pianoite's battered facade, silhouetted by the faint moonlight filtering through broken windows. The fractured keys, some missing, others chipped and worn, offered a haunting echo of melodies forever silenced. Elena's fingers wandered over the cold, cracked surface, each groove a whispered memory of dreams lost in the tides of betrayal. Her heartbeat faltered as a gust of wind swept through, scattering loose papers and catching the tattered edges of a forgotten music sheet that fluttered briefly before sinking into the abyss below. The sound was barely a whisper, a ghost of a lullaby vanishing into the night. A solitary tear traced a path down her cheek, relentless in its descent, mingling with the rain that had begun to fall, thin droplets carving cold rivers on her skin. The night's chill seemed to seep deeper, encasing her in a tomb of isolation. Her voice was a faint breath carried away by the wind, a taut whisper hanging suspended in the heavy air. Is this all that remains? The city responded only with the distant wail of a siren and the rustle of empty leaves dancing on forgotten streets. The dog, once a symbol of unwavering loyalty, lay curled at her feet, its steady breathing the sole heartbeat in the suffocating silence. Elena sank to the floor, the rough texture biting through the thin fabric of her dress. She folded inward, a wounded songbird with clipped wings. The fragmented moonlight caressed her, casting long shadows that swallowed the fragile glow in her eyes. For a long moment, the world held its breath alongside her, embracing the profound emptiness where hope had once dared to reside. Time seemed to stretch, each second dripping heavy with the promise of surrender. The camera lingered on the shattered piano and the lone red rose, symbols of everything stolen and everything too precious to let go. And there, cradled in the cold night, Elena's form flickered, a fragile ember amidst the darkness, poised precariously on the verge of fading into silence. The gray dawn seeped slowly into the slivers of broken cityscape visible through the cracked window of Elena's cramped apartment. Rain traced jagged paths along the glass, each drip a staccato echo of the rhythm pounding relentlessly in her chest. She sat slumped on the bare floor, shadows draped across her like a shroud, the faded red rose pressed against her palm, fragile and cold, its petals curling inward like the fragile remnants of her resolve. In the muted light, the battered edges of a crumpled sheet of music lay scattered beside her, fragments of the midnight lullaby she once sang with dreams still nascent. The broken piano in the club replayed itself in her mind, each shattered key a testament to lost chance and silence endured. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded a small note, yellowed and brittle, discovered earlier in the collar of the stray dog that lingered ever faithfully at her doorstep. The handwriting was elegant yet hurried, a message fragmented with meaning, a secret whispered in shadows: hold fast to the song. Your voice can change the night. Elena's breath wavered, the words threading a faint warmth through the cavernous ache inside her. The dog nuzzled her hand gently, eyes glistening with unwavering loyalty, a living embodiment of the red rose's promised love that dared to bloom despite danger and decay. She rose unsteadily, reaching for the broken piano's image etched deep within her memory, the symbol of lost dreams, but also, she now understood, a pledge that music and hope could live beyond rupture. The city stirred awake around her, its pulses a mix of menace and possibility. A distant echo, soft and haunting, rippled through the early morning air, the faintest strains of a lullaby carried on the wind, weaving promise beneath the weight of despair. Her lips parted, voice fragile but unwavering. I will sing again. The camera held her profile in the rising light, a silhouette framed by the breaking dawn, fragile yet unyielding. The red rose in her hand, once a symbol of forbidden love and shadowed past, now pulsed softly, its color richer in the light of resurrection. In this fragile stillness, the abyss narrowed. A silent decision was forget, a thread of courage ignited amidst the ruins. Elena stepped toward the window, the cityscape unfolding like a canvas of shadows and light, and as she opened the pane, the cool morning air filled her lungs, a breath of renewal and quiet defiance. The scene faded into silence, suspended at the edge of a rebirth, where the lullaby's melody promised a forthcoming dawn. The room was hushed, filled with a fragile hope that shimmered like the first light seeping into the dim corners of a once shadowed space. Elena stood in the center, shoulders squared, a flicker of resolve igniting behind her deep blue eyes. Her vintage dress, dark as the night's depths, caught the faintest glimmers of dawn that filtered through the cracked windows, casting streaks of amber and rose across the room. The broken piano, battered and silent, reflected a different kind of hope, one that refused to be drowned in darkness. She inhaled slowly, the weight of despair still heavy but tempered by a newfound clarity. Her fingers brushed the worn fabric of her dress, a tactile reminder of her strength, both fragile and resilient. The faint sound of distant sirens and the murmur of the city outside seemed to fade into the background, replaced by an internal rhythmless, tumultuous, more purposeful. A small, delicate note rested in her hand, the same one she'd found earlier, hidden within the collar of a stray dog still loyally by her side. The words, now etched in her mind, whispered of hope beyond the shadows, of turning darkness into dawn. "You still have the voice," it had read, "and the courage to use it." Elena lifted her chin, her expression softening into a quiet smile. The night's fears, the despair, and the doubts, these were the shadows that had obscured her path, but now they shimmered like faint stars in the awakening sky. She realized that love's true power was in its vulnerability, in risking everything for the hope of liberation. The world outside inched toward warmth. The city's pulse grew steady as the sun began to rise beyond the skyline, the promise of new beginnings. Her gaze swept over the battered piano, once a symbol of her lost dreams, now a silent testament to her resilience. The broken keys seemed to echo with a promise. Music, like hope, could be repaired, reawakened. Her hand lingered on the note, a fragile but unbreakable thread that connected her to the future she dared to believe in. A deep breath settled in her lungs, the first true inhale of liberation, infused with quiet strength. The shadows around her softened, blending into the dawn, making space for renewal. With hesitant yet resolute steps, Elena moved toward the window, her silhouette outlined by the rising sun, an imperfect but fierce figure, born anew from the ashes of despair. The city's awakening heart beat in tandem with her own, telling her that nothing is truly lost when hope persists, however fragile. In this fleeting moment, crushed by time but eternal in feeling, she saw the distant horizon and felt the heartbeat of transformation. Not yet complete, but undeniably underway. The dim glow of the chandelier flickered ominously as Elena faced Vincent in the dimly lit back room of the nightclub. Shadows cast heavy across her trembling figure, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of leather and steel. Her deep blue eyes, usually alive with hope, now burned with a fierce resolve, a fire ignited from the deep well of her pain and newfound purpose. Vincent's voice was cold, a whisper of death, as he leaned close, the space between them charged with imminent danger. "You think you can outplay me? You're just a girl playing dress-up with dreams." Elena's lips parted slightly, not to speak but to summon the last whispers of her courage. She stepped back, her vintage dress cloaking her in both vulnerability and strength. Her hand brushed the worn leather of her clutch, the same one holding the secret evidencia truth that could topple Vincent's empire. "It's not just a song I sing," she breathed, voice steady despite the churning darkness. "It's a lullaby for the lost, a plea for the broken. And I won't let your shadows drown what's finally awakening inside me." The room seemed to press closer, the faintest hint of dawn peeking through a cracked window as Elena reached inside her coat, clutching the envelope of proof that could destroy Vincent. Her heart hammered wildly, yet she moved with purpose, decisive and commanding. In a sudden, swift motion, she held the evidence high, her voice rising against the heavy silence. "This is the truth you're afraid of. I have it and I will use it." Vincent staggered, the realization sinking like a stone in his gut. The high-stakes poker game had shifted, and Elena's resolve cut through the darkness like a jagged shard of glass. This was her battlefield now, her voice a weapon thinly veiled in vulnerability but honed by years of silence. Behind her, faint light spilled in from the alley, streaking the room with gold and shadow, symbolizing hope reborn amid chaos. Elena's fingers trembled as she pressed the evidence into Vincent's trembling hands, her eyes blazing with clarity. "You threaten love and life alike. But I will stand, even if it means standing alone in this night." The moment hung suspended, a fragile yet powerful breakthrough. Shadows retreated just a little as the universe shifted on the edge of her courage. The broken pieces of her past shimmered anew, her pain, her defiance, and the quiet hope that refused to be silenced. A final, steadying breath escaped Heron in spoken acknowledgement that her fight was only beginning, yet she had already won the first part, the recognition that her voice, her love, and her truth were worth every risk. In the flickering light, Elena's silhouette stood Tala, witness to her own revolution. The room, heavy with enmity, had become a sanctuary of resilience, and outside, the city's engine roared silently, unaware of the war waged in shadows. The scene culminated in her fearless gaze, the first light of dawn cast upon her face radiant, unbowed, a symbol of hope rising from the depths of darkness. The midnight hour loomed over the city, its shadows stretching long and dark, seeping into every alley and corner where secrets and danger lurked. Elena stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, overlooking the endless metropolis, a silhouette bathed in the now dawning dawn's faint light. Her deep blue eyes held a firm, unwavering resolve, a mirror to the fire that had reignited within her in the crucible of violence and revelation. The streetlights flickered beneath her, casting a mosaic of light and shadow across her vintage-inspired dress. Her chest rose and fell in quiet, deliberate breaths, each inhale a silent proclamation of newfound strength. The whispered lullaby that once haunted her was now a song of defiance, echoing softly in her mind, resonant, unbreakable. Behind her, the city pulsed with life, cars rushing by, unaware of the battle between darkness and light that had just unfolded. For Elena, the chaos that once threatened to drown her had become the forge in which her true self was finally wrought. Her fingers gently brushed against the locket hanging around her neck, a memento of love, loss, and hope, a symbol of the journey from despair to empowerment. The night's shadows receded as she turned toward the horizon, where the first faint hues of sunrise bled into the sky's deep indigo, a canvas of promises yet to be fulfilled. Her lips curved into a gentle, victorious smile as she watched the city awaken, resilient, vibrant, free. The camera lingered on her profile, capturing the lines of relief and purpose etched across her face. The broken piano, once a relic of abandoned dreams, now symbolized the silent promise of rebirth. The red rose in her hand had weathered storms, yet it bloomed anew in her grasp, a testament to love's enduring resilience. With unshakable conviction, Elena lifted her face toward the awakening sun. Her voice, a clear and steady lullaby, began to drift in the morning air, not a song of sorrow, but one of liberation, healing, and hope. The melody twined with the gentle breeze, weaving a tapestry of serenity and strength. In this silent dawn, she stood at the crossroads of her past and future, poised for the final act. Every shadow of doubt had dissolved, leaving behind the unbreakable truth of her courage. She took a step forward, confident, unbowed, radiant, the true and fearless artist of her own destiny. The scene held that moment, a sacred space between darkness and dawn, despair and hope, silence and song before slowly fading into the luminous promise of a new beginning. The night hushes gently over the city, stars flickering silently above the darkened skyline. Elena stands on the rooftop of her apartment, the city's heartbeat echoing in her ears, the distant hum of life, of love, of danger finally subdued. The cool air brushes against her skin, a tender caress whispering of renewal. Her deep blue eyes reflect a quiet peace, a shimmering ocean of gratitude and understanding. Clasped in her hands is a delicate photograph, two lovers beneath a moonlit sky, their intertwined hands glowing softly. It's a symbol of happy, an image frozen in time, yet alive with the promise of new beginnings. Elena's fingertips linger on the edges, tracing the contours of dreams once lost and now found again. Behind her, the broken piano rests silently in her living room, a relic of her darkest nights, its emptiness echoing her past despair. Yet, in the gentle dawn light spilling through the window, it now stands as a testament to resilience, a silent reminder that even shattered dreams can be pieced together. Her gaze drifts toward the horizon, where the first faint streaks of sunlight pierce the night's darkness, soft, golden ribbons heralding a day of hope. The city's jagged silhouette is serene in the quiet, almost sacred moment, each shadow and light playing its part in the unfolding story of renewal. Elena's breathing steadies, her posture relaxed but confident. A faint smile curves her lips, gentle and genuine. She recognizes that her journey, a tumult of shadows and light, has reached a silent, profound turning point. The fears, the betrayals, the dangerous love, all receding into the wings of her mind, replaced by grace, courage, and the resilient glow of love that endures beyond the chaos. She lifts her head, drawing the peaceful dawn into her lungs, the gift of awakening, of forgiving herself, of embracing who she truly is now. The city slowly stirs to life around her, a luminous tapestry woven with stories of love and redemption. In this moment of stillness, Elena feels the weight of every tear, every moment of pain, and every instant of hope, all woven into the fabric of her renewed spirit. The camera pulls back in a slow, cinematic lullaby, the iconic skyline bathed in the first light of morning, a symbol of endless possibility. Elena stands at the threshold of her future, calm and radiant, a beacon of hope rising from the ashes, a quiet promise to herself and to the love she has finally dared to accept. Under a vast, starlit sky, Elena stood at the edge of a quiet hill overlooking the city's distant glow, where the chaos and shadows of the past had finally begun to dissolve. Her deep blue eyes shimmered with a quiet peace, reflecting the luminous crescent moon that hung delicately above. She clutched her cherished lullaby sheet, the song that had sustained her through the darkest storm sand. It fluttered softly in the night wind. The gentle hum of the city's distant life intertwined with the whispering leaves, creating a symphony of calm and renewal. Elena took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the pulsating echoes of her journey, the pain, the betrayals, the courage now settling into a sacred memory etched into her soul. Her fingers brushed against the worn fabric of her vintage dress, the material a soft reminder of vulnerability and strength combined. Her face, illuminated by the silver glow of the moonlight, bore a gentle, knowing smile, a testament to the love she had fought to protect and the forgiveness she had finally granted herself. In that moment of serene reflection, she cast her gaze across the city, envisioning the scars of her past as cracks in the pavement, now healing under the gentle light of hope. The broken piano, once a symbol of lost dreams and silence, now basked in the quiet dawn, its shadows long but its spirit unbroken. Elena slowly lifted her face, embracing the cool night air, allowing it to wash away the last remnants of fear that had haunted her. She whispered softly, "The night has held its secrets. The dawn has brought its truth. And I am free." Her voice, tender yet resolute, carried on the wind, echoing into eternity. Behind her, the city's pulse continued, an unspoken promise that love, once fragile, could now truly thrive in the light of understanding. Her journey, marked by shadows and light, had carved a new path, one paved with resilience, hope, and the unquenchable belief that love's true power transcended all fears. As she turned to face the horizon once more, the camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette against the awakening sky, a symbol of transformation, forgiveness, and new beginnings. The lullaby she sang long ago lingered softly in the air, a gentle reminder that love, when nurtured with courage and vulnerability, could indeed conquer the darkness and lead into the promise of tomorrow. The night sky stretched into infinity, a tapestry of dark velvet pierced by the glimmers of distant stars. Elena stood beneath this celestial canopy, her silhouette a gentle outline against the vast, silent universe. The burned-out remnants of her past, once fierce storms of betrayal and doubt, now lay hushed and settled. Her hands cradle a fragile, old lantern, a luminous relic from her journey, its light flickering softly, casting shifting shadows that dance in harmony with her heartbeat. A cool breeze moved across the open field, whispering of peace and eternity. The familiar melodies of her lullaby, once sung amid chaos and darkness, now floated tenderly into the night song of reconciliation, hope, and love unbroken. The soft glow from the lantern flickered in her eyes, a mirror to the quiet glow within her soul. Behind her, the broken piano lay in the shadows, its fractured keys a symbol of dreams once lost, now remembered as part of her story's beauty. The crimson rose she once carried, now faded but resilient, reminded her of the love that defied shadows and a love that endured because she dared to be vulnerable. Elena's fingers brushed the petals, a silent farewell and a testament to her growth. The moon cast a gentle silver sheen over her features, illuminating her face, calm, radiant, unbowed. In this sacred moment, she allowed herself to feel the full measure of her journey, the pain that sharpened her resolve, the betrayals that sharpened her courage, and the love that finally found its sanctuary. The landscape around her was silent, yet alive in whispers of eternity. She took a slow, measured breath, each inhale a gift, each exhale a release. Her eyes closed briefly, feeling the weight of her past dissolve into the night. She had crossed the storm, navigated the shadows, and emerged a beacon of strength and forgiveness. As dawn hinted at its arrival, faint pink and gold hues kissed the horizon, a promise of new beginnings beyond the darkness. Elena raised her face toward the gentle light, a silent prayer woven from hope and compassion. The lantern's glow steadied, unshaken, embodying her inner peace. In that sublime silence, the universe seemed to hold its breath, surrendering to the quiet majesty of her rebirth, a testament to the impossible journey from despair to divine serenity. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing her solitary figure at the edge of the world, a symbol of endurance, salvation, and love's unyielding promise, now eternal against the radiant dawn. How far would you go to protect someone you love?